I am always attracted to, I guess, more stories where the characters are in kind of extreme situations. That to me is drama, really. You know, if you put an individual under pressure and you see how they react, that to me is interesting, rather than someone where everything is going terribly well all the time for them. It's not very compelling to me. So, and then it's up to, I don't know, the audience members or the media or whoever to decide if that's in a particular genre or that's in a particular genre. I don't ever think about it like that. I remember when we made 28 Days Later, I only realised when the film came out that it was a zombie film. I really didn't think it was a zombie film whatsoever. And it's probably good, because if I did, I don't know, I probably would have done a terrible job. Perhaps I did do a terrible job. But yeah, so I only think of it in terms of the truth of the character, the arc of the story, and serving that as best I can, really.
It's not true that the magic is gonna happen later. Oh no, we'll get it later. We're gonna get some changes while we're shooting, and no. That I've seen too many times. That doesn't work. You either have a great script or you have almost zero chances of making a good movie, or being able to do a good performance or to create something interesting. Everything has to be there on the page, or adios. It doesn't happen.
Even when it's seems so funny on paper, you get there and then there's nothing like that first rehearsal where you're like, oh, that's kind of sweaty. That didn't quite, and then you have to figure out the puzzle. It's such a constant kind of fluid morphing thing that I think it's part of the fun of it. I think it's the challenge, at least for me, that there is no safety. Like, you're constantly morphing, trying to figure out how do you actually make it funny.
You know, that's the beautiful thing about acting, is that there is no... How I prepare for roles is probably completely different than how somebody else is. And some people do, you know, the in vogue thing is to, you know, I don't want to say in vogue, actually, because everyone's different, but it's like method, to where you have to, like, really, you know, live in this character's skin off set, you know, and when you go home and you're eating breakfast and carrying all that stuff. And I don't have to do that. I'm thankful that I don't have to, because acting is, like, stressful enough as it is, let alone, you know, in your personal time, if you're taking it with you. It's like, you know, my God, man. But yeah, I do think that you should. There's certain things that you're gonna have to sacrifice depending on, you know, the character that you're playing. If you're playing a character that's not too. I don't know. I mean, I think if you've done enough research, the character should, you know, kind of stick with you for a little while.
There's got to be an in. I sort of always look for the key that unlocks why somebody is like who they are. And this sort of, it's the narcissism epidemic. I mean, that is prevalent and undeniable. We've become, as a nation, very adept at transformations. And we have all the tools. We have, you know, cameras at our fingertips. We're very aware suddenly of, you know, everybody, not just actors and models, are suddenly aware of, you know, their best angles and things, and they're editing their lives to be more enviable as they present their photos on Facebook. And what does narcissism mean for relationships and marriage? It means that instead of just being who you are in a selfless way, you're requiring the other person to project the image of yourself that you want to put across. And that is very, very different.
When people say, well, you've got to like the character you play, and you go, no, I've got to be the character that I play. I don't have to like the character that I play, you know. And empathising is a funny one too, because I think what I'm more aware of is when an audience is empathising with a character or not, you know. And that's, you know, you've got to constantly be aware of, not be aware of your audience, but you're aware of the process and what it is that you're doing, and that there's a camera pointed at you, and that this may be a moment where we want our audience to feel like there's a shift, and we actually kind of start rooting for the character, or whatever it happens to be, you know.
I think my job as the filmmaker is to inhabit the moment as much as possible, and to make it as real as much as possible. Now, given the filmmaking process, we have this a saying that goes, sometimes you literally have to have a certain posture, and you have to make physical motions that would never happen in real life. And we say, well, this feels fake in real life, but it will look real in fake life. And that's part of the engineering of motion pictures that you learn how to figure out. But that has to run counter to the reality of the moment of how you say it and when you say it. And if a line does, in fact, go against the grain of what I think natural behavior is, you've got to flag it, and you have to say it either has to come out or it has to, you know, be reiterated.
All of us as actors or comedians, I started as a comedian, I'm still a comedian. I would do my jokes in front of the mirror. You know, I'm my worst critic, but I'm my biggest fan as well. So we always start out, you know, acting in front of the mirror. I remember when it was Star Trek and Stardate 28102. I would look in the mirror and do, you know, Star Trek or do my impersonations. I remember when I was working on Ronald Reagan. Well, as a matter of fact, and so that's all in the mirror. So that actually comes into play when they say, okay, turn this way, act like you see this, is that, and the other. And it's something you've been doing all your life.
You know, you could do all the prep work that you want, and I do like to do a lot of preparation, but when I get to a set, I always try and just like throw it all out the window and be present and in the moment, because you never know. I mean, you can read it on the page, but you never know what another actor is going to bring to something, and you want to be open to responding to that in real time. So it's not something I have to think about. It's just I leave myself open to experiencing it in the moment.
Once an actor becomes too sure of what he's doing, you see him doing it, and he's not actually doing it because he's just sort of doing it on remote control. And that can happen actually quite easily. If you do lots of work, I don't, because I've never privileged doing lots and lots of work because of that, because I never wanted to think that I'm on remote control, and I want to unlearn what I've done so that it's almost like I come in as a child, and it's just, I sort of just do it. So I don't even think intellectually about what I'm doing. I know the story, and then I can just feel, at least for myself, that I'm not... I mean, I know I have the technique really installed in me as a kind of infrastructure, the technique of filmmaking, of the basic film, and then on top of that, I just want to have a kind of, you know, a really, really as free spirit as possible to just give any kind of interpretation that comes through, just comes through. I mean, it's like you have to be told what to do by your little genie inside at the moment that it's happening.
I feel like in a lot of ways, you get better with every movie, you get more experience, you start learning more. But it never helps me feel more confident before every movie. Before every movie, I'm like, I don't know who this character is. I haven't found it. You know, I can read the script and really like it, but with every movie at the beginning, before we get started, I'm like, I haven't found this character. I have no idea what this is. So that doesn't really go away.
It was one of the great things about acting. It's your boss changes, the director changes. Your partners, co-workers changes. Your location changes. And almost who you are changes. The story changes. So, but I would have thought that there'd be, you know, you always go, well, this happened in this movie, so when I get here, I want to make a left. And then suddenly I get there and I can't make a left. You know, I'm putting a metaphor there, but it hasn't repeated itself yet. So when it does, I'll start yawning.
No, I don't like being on the set anymore. I like the work. I like the scenes. I like the diving into the actual moment, but that's quite short in a day. But my whole aim is for that, and that makes it still enjoyable. If not, I wouldn't do it. But what used to excite me in the past of being with a crew and having fun, and that's a bit gone.
You know, I remember my first film I ever did with Guy Ritchie when we was doing Lock, Stock and Snatch, and he was always, you know, open for silly little lines or any sort of improvisation. But I haven't done any of that since then. But it is a great way to work because you get new stuff and stuff that is, you know, it's priceless when it comes out and it's good. It is priceless. So, I mean, there's different movies that I've been in are very sort of driven by, you know, I don't say a lot, or, you know, it's very hard to improvise in those sort of situations and have alternate lines, because a lot of alternate lines sometimes don't work within the context of the story. Whereas a comedy, sometimes it's just for a laugh, or I think the playing field is a lot broader when you're doing these kind of films. So it's, in the end, you have such a crack making the film.